Welcome, everyone, to another edition of our Summer Reading Club Spaceopoly Book Chats. I'm your host today, Kareen, and we are here to talk about two brand new categories with our fantabulous librarians. We have got Fiona here today, Sadie, Liz, and Virginia.
Hello.
Seems thrilled. I am your host today, Kareen, and we are here to talk about two other topics on our little board. We are here to talk about book one in a series, which I am very excited about, and also a book about social issues, which I am equally as excited about to see what everyone has chosen today. So my first question is for Virginia, because I know you are a series reader. What to you makes a good series?
Ones that have characters that I want to spend time with over and over and over again. Like, doesn't matter what they do. I like them so much that I want to hang out with them. So definitely for a series, I think the characters are more important to me than what the stories are about, usually.
Okay, that's fair. And Sadie, because I know you're another series person, is there anything that really grabs you when you're reading a series, or something that immediately is like, not for me?
Yeah, I think definitely characters, similar to Virginia. Characters that I just want to read about in no matter what the situation is. Also, I think a world that I really enjoy. So if the world that's created is really engaging, I will pretty much try and read anything that takes place in that world. And so if it's a series, I will read novellas that have to do with that world. I will just try to get anything that is possible and anything that is available if the world is created really well.
And does anyone here believe in like the second book slump? Has anyone ever read a series where the second book was kind of like, but you kept going through the series?
I am actually quite guilty of giving up on a series after the first book if it doesn't catch my attention. And I've been trying to do better with this after a conversation with some colleagues about how sometimes that first book, they're just getting into the groove of things. They haven't quite got it yet. So I more pay attention to the first book and how that does for me, and then decide from there.
There you go. And Liz, are you a forgiving first book series reader, or are you start strong or don't start at all?
I don't read a lot of series at all. So if I even pick up a series, the first book, I have to already really be into it for whatever reason, like talking with colleagues about what a great book it is, or just hearing so many good things, or just knowing that it's a world that I do want to learn more about. So the few series I have started, I'd say 90% I've seen through.
Okay. Well, hopefully, Liz, you get a couple more really good series suggestion from our panel today. We are going to start with Fiona. So Fiona, if you want to tell us about a series that you love, that you...
Yeah, so, I forgot my picture, but I chose Call Down the Hawk by Maggie Stiefvater, and this is actually a follow-up to another series. So the original series is The Raven Cycle, and it is a YA series about a teen from a family of psychics, and kind of her entanglement with Gansey, this sort of like elite private school rich boy, and all his friends as they search for the mystical king, Glenn, I wrote it down, then I can't read it. For a mystical king. And it was like not something that I would usually get into, like usually the idea of like psychics and just like, no, doesn't do it for me. But I think the thing is I fell in love with this character, Ronan Lynch, who's just like this tough guy. Yeah, like that's pretty much what he is on the surface. But he just has great character development. And so she made this other series called the Dreamer series, which Call Down the Hawk is the first one in, and it actually follows Ronan. So after actually ending up loving the first series, this was like something I just looked forward to so much. So it follows Ronan, and he is this kid from a dysfunctional Irish family, and he has inherited the ability to bring dream objects into life. And his boyfriend, Adam, who's also in the first series, is kind of a scholarship kid. He comes from a poor family. He spends his time fixing cars, and they have a really kind of cute, oddball romance. And so he makes an appearance again in this, which I was excited to see more about their relationship. And this series also brings in lots of new characters, including Jordan Hennessy and her posse of identical girls. So I don't want to spoil it too much, but there's like, I don't know, like 10 Jordan Hennessys, and they're all slightly different. And Carmen Farouk Lane, who's a reluctant dreamer hunter. Ronan's brother Declan also comes back into this, and in the initial one, Declan and Ronan are always at odds and always fighting, and Declan gets a lot of much needed character development in this series. So all of these characters' stories intertwine in a way that is either going to stop the apocalypse or start it. It's not entirely clear. It's super action-packed, but I'm only in it for the 300% more Ronan that is in this book. It's a totally wild romp with lots of weird things happening. It's a wild teen fantasy with murder crabs and motorcycles. So if all of that randomness with a lot of like built-up teen angst sounds like your thing, then I think that you will enjoy it.
That does sound like my thing. Thank you, Fiona. Love a good end of the world. Love a good end of the world. All right,
And
next
you said
up.
murder crabs. Sorry, you said murder crabs, right?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm in for the murder crabs.
Lots of murder crab guts too.
Also good. Also good.
Great. Okay, moving swiftly along for Murder Crab Guts, we have Sadie.
Well, I'm not going to talk about murder crabs, but I am going to talk about murder, I guess you could say. So my book is Throne of Glass by Sarah J. Maas, and this is the first book in the same titled series, the Throne of Glass series, and it is a YA fantasy series. It takes place in the kingdom of Adarlan. And in this kingdom, magic is not only rare, but it's actually outlawed by the king. Adarlan is the seat of power in the area, and it's ruled kind of by a not great king, King Dorian Havillard I. And he has been in the seat of power since he conquered the surrounding kingdoms, including the kingdom of Terrasen, about 10 years earlier. So this is all background. It does come into play, but the main story follows 18-year-old Selena Sardothian. And a year ago, Selena was one of the most infamous and feared assassins. So there is your murder. She was an assassin. She was one of the most feared assassins in the kingdom. However, during one assignment, she is betrayed and caught and arrested and sent to work in the prison salt mines in Endovier. She doesn't really have any hope of escape. She doesn't have any hope of rescue. She doesn't really have anyone left in her life who would be able to help her in that situation. So she's just sort of resigned herself to a life working, of hard labor, working in the salt mines. However, one day, the prince of the kingdom, Dorian, comes and approaches her with a bit of a proposition. His father is hosting a competition to find a new royal assassin. The prince wants to put Selena forward as his champion in this competition. If Selena wins, she has to serve the kingdom for 4 years, but then has her freedom. Since the alternative is life spent working in the mines for the rest of her life, Selena decides that she will accept this proposition and goes to live at the castle and compete in this competition. However, as the competition starts, a few weeks into the competition, her competitors start turning up dead. She's not really sure what's going on. She's a little bit worried that she might be the next victim. So she starts to investigate the deaths and try to figure out what is going on. What she learns tells her a lot more about the kingdom, a lot more about the competition, and a lot more about her past than she ever thought and that anyone could ever have guessed. I really like this book because of Selena. The character drew me in as soon as I started reading it. She is a very strong female character. She is very sarcastic, kind of snarky, which I really, really enjoy. This is one of the books that, as I mentioned, I've devoured absolutely everything that takes place in this world. There's a series of novellas that take place before Selena is arrested that kind of explain how she became an assassin and her life before that. And I've read every single thing that is part of this world. And I recommend it. It ends with a really big reveal at the end of the first book, and I feel like that in and of itself made me need to read the second book. But lots of action, lots of betrayal, lots of kind of court politics and things like that. Lots of intrigue and a little bit of magic, which I always enjoy in my books as well.
Fantastic. Sounds very good. Sounds very good. And she's got a couple of series going, if I'm not mistaken.
She does. Yes. So this, the Throne of Glass series has now ended. It has 8 books. Kingdom of Ash was the last one, and it came out 2018, I believe. So that series has been wrapped up. She also has her Court of Thorns and Roses series, which takes place kind of in another universe. It is kind of not tied together in characters, but tied together a bit in theme. Between the two series. And also I prefer Throne of Glass, but Court of Thorns and Roses is not too bad either.
All right. So if you're looking, if you're tired of waiting for George R.R. Martin to kind of wrap it all up and you're looking for a long series to invest in, it feels like that one might be right up your alley.
Yeah, definitely recommend.
Fantastic. All right. Now we're up to the non-series reader, Liz, to see what she is going to recommend.
Yes, and I guess I should mention that when I say I have read some series, they have pretty much all turned out to be trilogies. And the one series that I can think of that I haven't finished is still going right now. It's probably at about 10 books, and I got turned off after the first one. So maybe I have a thing for trilogies. And speaking of which, this first book in the trilogy, the Winter Night trilogy, is called The Bear and the Nightingale, and it is by Catherine Arden, and this was this author's debut book and debut series. So in The Bear and the Nightingale, we find out about Vazia, a very strong-willed, sort of, I guess, tomboyish teenage girl who has a special gift. Now, this historical fantasy takes place within medieval Russia. It's packed with action and adventure, and it incorporates a lot of folklore from the Russian culture. And you can really tell when you're reading this book and this series that the author has done a lot of research about this particular time period. So Vazia, she's part of a close-knit family. Unfortunately, her mother has passed, and she's got a stepmother that she doesn't quite get along with. So that's sort of the only rift within her life. But otherwise, she gets along well with everybody in her community as well. Now, the gift that I was referring to that Vazia has, she is able to see and communicate with mythical creatures that live all around us, according to Russian folklore, creatures that live within our homes and take care of our homes and look after us so long as we pay them reverence. But during this time in medieval Russia, Orthodox Christianity is coming into popularity. So because of that, many of the people within Vasia's community are no longer adhering to the old ways. They are no longer making offerings to these mythical creatures. And because of that, these creatures are weakening and may disappear entirely. So those protections that come with the creatures living in people's homes are weakening themselves. And that is opening the door for a great evil to creep in to society. So because of this, because of the taboo that has now come with being able to see and communicate with these creatures, Vasia has to hide her gift. However, she can see that evil is encroaching and she must do something about it. Now, where this takes her, you'll have to read the book to find out. But it does take her beyond the confines of her family and of her community. And she heads over to Muscovy, which you may now know as Moscow, the capital of Russia. So I really was gripped by Vasia's story, by her as an incredibly strong character, particularly within her society, and her strong moral compass to do what was right regardless of the cost. So this story, The Bear and the Nightingale by Catherine Arden, left me anticipating what would happen next. And so with each book that came out in the trilogy, I eagerly waited for the publication date and wanted to see what happened next.
I have only read the first in that series. I think I might have the other two at home right now, but it is fantastic. And I think you did a really good job of explaining that, Liz.
Thank you.
It's kind of got like a little bit like a fairy tale retelling feeling. So if you're like a Naomi Novak fan, it like right up your cul-de-sac. All right, next up we have got a Virginia.
So everybody, let's get back to murder. Because that's what we're all about today. So picking a series for a series reader, just one to talk about, is impossible. It is painful, but my colleagues here actually kind of helped me narrow down because I noticed that everybody was doing more of a fantasy series today. So I decided that to go with the crime thriller. So the one that I have for you today is the Department Q series, and this is by UC Adler Olsen, and the first book is called The Keeper of Lost Causes. And this book is translated from Danish by Lisa Hartford. So Department Q is a new department that is set up within the Copenhagen Homicide Department. And it is created mainly for political reasons because there's a bunch of politicians who decided that, you know what, I need to get some more votes, and I'm going to get that by pressuring the police to resurrect these cold cases, high-profile cold cases that were never solved, and we need to bring the victims justice and also bring me some votes. So that's how Department Q was born. The police decided that, fine, we'll do it, because this new department came with a large sum of money, which they plan to use all for themselves and their other operations, and just give Department Q like the bare minimum. So here we have the basement of the police building. We're just going to put Department Q right in the unfurnished basement, and we're going to give it exactly one staff, one detective, Karl Mark. Karl just actually came back from a leave. He was on a case with two of other detectives, and they were ambushed, and one of them was killed, and the other was still in the hospital and paralyzed for life. Karl blamed himself for what happened because he thinks that he should have reacted faster. He should have done something, but he was frozen and he was too scared to do anything. And so he blamed himself for all that. So he's dealing with issues which made him even a less friendly person and even more grumpy and less of a people person, which he was never one to start with. And Karl was like, fine, I'll just go to the basement. I will, come to work, drink some coffee, put my feet up, take a nap, and just watch the clock ticks by and go home when it's time's up. Because even though he was a very good detective, he just kind of lost, he doesn't care anymore about anything. So he sort of just lost his interest. But he didn't know that this department came with money. And so he went up to his boss and he's like, come on, like, I know what you're using the money for, but at least just give me an assistant, right? Like, give me a janitor, give me a handyman. I need someone to like help set the department up. I need them to bring all those boxes and boxes and boxes of cold cases down and all the files and everything. Just give me an assistant, right? So they gave him Azad. Azad is a recent immigrant from the Middle East. You will not really find out about his background just yet, but you will soon. And he is he's not a detective, he's just a handyman, basically. And so he and Carl start setting up the department. Carl doesn't really care, but Assad seems to be really interested in all these cases. And he was starting to read them. And before you know it, he started getting Carl interested, and they start looking into what they might consider their first case. And they found the case of Marit Lingard. Marit is a rising star in her political party about 5 years ago. And one day she was on a ferry with her brother, and she allegedly jumped off the ferry and drowned herself. There was no body found, so the case was sort of still left open because of her position. Like, they kind of have to keep this case open, and all the people that they talked to that know Marie couldn't find, like, they just don't know why she would drown herself. Like, that just doesn't seem right. But there was no new leads, no new evidence for a long, long time, and so they just sort of left that case closed. And now this is going to become Department Q first case. So the book alternates between chapters with the present day, which is Carl investigation, and also with 5 years ago from the point of view of Marit, and what happened to her. So as a reader, you kind of get to find out things before Carl does, and you kind of watch those two parallel, and you're going to have to figure out whether, like, are they going to like come together? Is this, are they going to figure out sort of what happened to Marie? For those of you who love Scandinavian and Nordic noir, this series has everything you love about those series. It's dark, it's gruesome, it is brutal, all the cases, so I would not recommend it to most of my colleagues here. It is pretty dark, but I know there are some Nordic fans out there that would love this series. And I think what set this series apart is that you have this grumpy detective, which is pretty typical in a Nordic crime fiction series, paired up with this delightful gentleman, Assad, and he is just so much fun to read about. Like, he is smart. You know that Assad knows a lot more things than he appears. He is definitely more than meets the eye. And he, pretends that he doesn't know things and doesn't understand things, but in his like very innocent comments sort of give Carl's ideas and help him with his case. And I only read the first book so far, but I know that in the later books, you're going to get more people that is going to join Department Q, and they are supposed to be equally delightful. So all the side characters definitely made this series. So I am looking forward to spend more time with them. So this is, again, the Department Q series.
That does sound pretty good, I have to say. Even I love a mystery series because, again, like, there's something about a series that works really well with a procedural, right? Like, because there's always a new case, you're always meeting new people, new characters. Yeah. And I know this was a hard choice for you to make,
and
Virginia.
It's just fascinating too. Yep, fascinating to read. Like, I don't usually care a lot about like details and things, but just like watching these detectives go into like interview people and try to like find out what happened, and just like dig up like little like they try to piece together the story. It is so much fun. but it is gruesome. Let me just warn you. So,
Fun, gruesome murder.
oh yeah, yep.
All right, which brings me to mine, which is fun but not gruesome. So every once in a while, you find a book that you feel like is written just specifically for you. It checks all of the boxes of things that you really enjoy. And for me, that book and that series was The Strange Case of the Alchemist's Daughter by Theodora Goss. So in my checklist of things that I love Victorian stories. Love it. Love that setting. I like strong female characters and female friendships. It's got that. I love stories that are books kind of like about books. And this series does it really interestingly. It's a bit of a pastiche novel, and I like books that are funny, and this is that as well. So this story starts with Mary Jekyll, and Mary Jekyll finds herself penniless. She has a very nice house, but after her mother's tragic passing and her father's murder, she finds herself a woman without an income of a certain class with no real discernible skills. So she decides to do what any respectable Victorian lady would do, and she decides to hunt down her father's murderer. So she knows, and the police know, is that the kind, gentle Dr. Hyde was murdered by his former friend, Edward Hyde. So Mary Jekyll goes on the case of Mr. Hyde, but instead of tracking him down, she finds his daughter, who is this young Spitfire, half-feral, wall-climbing, nun-stabbing child who has been raised by this very strange order of nuns in the middle of England. And as she hunts down her, she also finds that her father and Edward Hyde had some connections to some other scientists, some other scientific minds of the Victorian times. So she decides to enlist the help of Sherlock Holmes and Dr. Watson to see if she can find out her father's former associates, to see if they can give her a little clue as to where Edward Hyde might be hiding. She meets 3 other women who are kind of like the product of strange experimentation, including Catherine Moreau. So if you've ever heard of the island of Dr. Moreau, Beatrice Rappaccini, which is from a short story by Nathaniel Hawthorne called Rappaccini's Daughter, and Justine Frankenstein, the bride that was made for Frankenstein. And together they join forces to try and oppose the mad scientists of the Alchemist Society and their malicious machinations. This is a fantastic pastiche novel. If you're a fan of Victorian literature, which I am, this is an absolute ride. This series has 3 so far, and I think it's probably going to continue. And it keeps drawing on all of these little clues for those of us who really, really enjoy Victorian literature. It's as Fiona described her book, it's a romp. It's fun. What I really enjoy about the format of it is that it is Catherine who is writing the actual story of what happened to them. And every once in a while, you'll get her readers, which are the other characters in the book, who interrupt to give a little bit of commentary about how they're being portrayed in the story, or that's not really how it happened, or are you sure you want to use that word to describe that? So it's this wonderful back and forth between author and reader, and then you as the other reader. So it's incredibly clever and it's incredibly fun.
I've read the first one. I have not read the rest of the series, though. So I quite liked the first one.
It's very fun. It's very, very fun. Mm-hmm. Yeah. All right. We are going to change gears to our second category on our Spaceopoly. Make sure I get that the right way. Our Spaceopoly board. And the next square that we are going to land on is about social issues. So we really like this square because it encompasses a large amount of things and really believe that we can build empathy and understanding by reading books about different people, different places, different situations. And the best way to understand them is to really get inside their mind. And what better way than through books? So we are going to throw over our first book over to Fiona to start us off in this category.
Okay, so I chose a very short, I'll say it's an easy read because it's so quick, but it's actually a very difficult read because of the subject matter. So I chose If I Go Missing by Brianna Joni with Nahani Shingoose and art by Neil Shanakapo. So this is an illustrated version of Joni's letter to the Winnipeg Chief of Police. And she wrote this when she was 14 years old. So Brianna Joni is Ojibwe and living in Winnipeg. And Nahani Shingoose is her aunt, who is Saulteaux, originally from Roseau River First Nation. And Shanakapo, who does the pictures, is also Saulteaux, but from Rolling River First Nation. So in this letter that the author wrote to the Winnipeg Chief of Police, she's addressing the epidemic of missing and murdered Indigenous women and girls in Canada. So she's drawing attention to the systemic racism in the media and police force. And it's a very passionate and personal letter that actually gives instructions of what to do if she were to go missing. She names Tina Fontaine, Nora Leah Ray, and Jaylene Amos, who are Indigenous women and girls who have gone missing and their murders haven't been solved or have not been brought to justice. And she compares their cases to white teens who went missing and garnered greater attention from police and media. Part of what the author calls for in her letter is the humanizing of women and girls who go missing, who are often minimized in their descriptions to skin color and socioeconomic status. It's a really great own voice starting place for understanding the MMIWG movement, which is a very difficult topic, and it was upsetting. But just having that personal view, I think, was really valuable. It wasn't a textbook. It was a young woman writing a letter to the police chief, wanting this police chief to think critically about how they deal with these cases and to give them the respect and priority that they deserve. So definitely something that I would recommend as a good starting spot. I think it's cataloged under graphic novels because it's got the images with it. And I appreciated that because it sort of slowed down the letter because it was quite a lot to take in. So having it as a graphic novel, even though it's still a really short read, you can probably read it, as quickly as a picture book if you like. But it just gave you a chance to sort of take in some of that a little bit more than just reading the letter.
Great. Thank you, Fiona. It's very good. It's very good. It sits with you for a really long time. All right. Next up, we have got Sadie.
All right. So I am going to talk about So You Want to Talk About Race. And this is by Nigerian-American writer Ijoma Oluo. And Ijoma has a background in political science. She's written for The Guardian, Jezebel, The Stranger, other publications as well. And her writing in general focuses a lot on feminism, social justice, the Black Lives Matter movement, race, intersectionality, and online harassment, among many other topics as well. She actually started focusing her writing a bit more after the death of Trayvon Martin. And one of the things that impacted her so much about Trayvon's death was that he was the same age as her son when he died. So she used that as a way to get more involved and to focus her writing quite a bit. So you want to talk about race, Ijoma delves into systemic racism, and she speaks to the fact that it is ingrained as part of mainly the US economic, political, social structures. And she definitely does speak specifically to the States, but everything that I have read so far is very, very applicable to Canada as well. It's very easy to see how everything she is talking about can be applied here and is very present here as well. So she opens the book by saying that it is a book for anyone who is wanting to start examining their own lives, start examining the systems that are around them, as well as to start working to change those systems. Each chapter then goes on to address a different aspect of systemic racism. These include intersectionality, affirmative action, the school to prison pipeline, microaggression, many others as well. And for each of those aspects, she'll help to define what it is. She'll help to define not only what it is in the broader sense, but what it is that she is speaking to. She'll often include personal stories about her own experiences within these systems and how she and her family and friends have been affected by them. And then what I'm really enjoying and learning from is that she will then break down the arguments that people have made when they speak out in support of these systems. She speaks very, very openly, very candidly about racism and about her experiences, which I'm really appreciating. And for this one, I'm actually listening to the audiobook, which I don't tend to do. I've never been able to focus on audiobooks before. I'll usually find that my mind will drift when I'm listening to audiobooks, and I've realized that I've missed a very large portion of the book and have to go back. But I've started driving to work, and so I've started listening to this while I am driving to work, and it's been a really great time to kind of absorb it and to listen to it. The audiobook is narrated by an American actress, Bonnie Turpin, and I think that she does a really good job in her reading. I actually think the book in general just is really good in an audio format. I find that it's really accessible in an audio format. I think that this is a great book for anyone who is ready to start learning and listening and taking action against systemic racism. And one of the really great things about it right now is Overdrive has it available through simultaneous access, so you don't have to wait at all to read it, so which is really great. They've made a few titles, anti-racist titles, available through simultaneous access, and this is one of them. So I highly recommend it. I'm not done yet. I'm just over halfway through it, and I'm learning a lot and kind of just taking everything in at this point, and very excited and interested to see what else she has to say.
Fantastic. Yeah, there are quite a few really good Overdrive titles, as Sadie says, that are available immediately, so you can download them onto your phone, onto your iPad, your tablet, and listen to them or read them immediately without any waiting. Thank you so much. All right, next up we have Liz.
So today I've chosen the book Such a Fun Age by Kylie Reid. So this is a work of fiction, and the author deals with issues of, through her story, racism and also privilege, and that stratification or intersectionality even within race, and also involves the white saviorism trope. So the primary character in Such a Fun Age is Emira. She's an African-American college student who is working as a babysitter for an affluent Caucasian family. And the mother of that family is named Alex, and the child that Emira is taking care of is named Briar, and she is a incredibly precocious and bright 3-year-old. So Emira really enjoys her job. She loves spending time with Briar. And one day, when Alex picks up the phone late one evening, and Emira is at a party, and requests that Emira come immediately to take Briar out of the house because there's been an incident at Alex's home. Emira doesn't refuse. Now, she does explain to Alex that you know, I'm at a party right now. I have consumed a bit of alcohol. I'm wearing a party dress. I'm not dressed for work. And Alex says, that's fine. It's an emergency. We need you to come by ASAP. So Amira does. She heads over, picks up Briar, and the only place that is open at that time that she can take the child that is safe is the grocery store a block or two over, walking distance from their house. So this is more upscale, I guess, grocery store. And the demographic is it definitely reflects the people who live in Alex's neighborhood. So it's a very affluent Caucasian neighborhood grocery store. So Amira is in there with Briar, and she doesn't know how long she'll need to keep Briar out of the house, so she tries to keep her entertained. She takes her to look at her favorite things in the grocery store, to take a look at the different aisles, and she even has a little dance party with her in the freezer section. Everybody is having a good time. The few other shoppers who are in there are smiling at them as they walk by because it looks like they're having so much fun. And then the store security guard comes by. And he asks Amira, who are you? What's your name? Who is this child? How did you come to get the child in your possession? And Amira explains, well, she's babysitting for the couple that she works for. And unfortunately, the security guard, as well as another bystander who had brought the two to the security guard's attention, are not buying this story. Amira's dressed for a party. She doesn't look like a babysitter, and assumptions are made by security. So they detain her within the store. She is able to call Alex, and her husband, Alex's husband, comes to the grocery store and says, this is my child. And when the security guard hears the story, he goes, okay. So sorry, sir. So sorry for this, this misunderstanding. And then they're all free to go. Now, all during this time, there's another individual, a Caucasian male named Kelly, and he's been recording this entire incident on his cell phone. So Briar and her father go home to their house, and Amira is shaken up, and she heads home to her house, and Kelly approaches her and tells her, you know, I've got a video. You should take this public. You should post this on social media. You shouldn't let them get away with this. She decides not to do anything with it. She just wants to let it go. It's yet another incident where she's been profiled, had assumptions made about her, and this is the last thing she wants to hear. Regardless, she does take Kelly's contact information in case she does want to follow up. Fast forward to the aftermath at Alex's house. Alex hears about what's happened. She's high profile in social media herself. She's a bit of an influencer, so to speak, a lifestyle guru online. And this is terrible. This is terrible for her image. If word got out that her Black babysitter was targeted in her community, how horrible would that be? So Alex goes into white savior mode. She feels so guilty that she decides to shower Amira with attention and invite her to parties and pour wine for her and have chats with her and have girl-to-girl, heart-to-hearts. Amira thinks this is weird, but she does show up at a dinner party she's invited to at Alex's house one day as a guest. And lo and behold, she brings Kelly with her. They've started a kind of a relationship, interestingly enough. Turns out that Alex and Kelly have a bit of a past. And this is where things get really messy. Privately, Alex accuses Kelly of being racist and fetishizing Black people, while Kelly accuses Alex of being a racist and having caused harm and detriment to African Americans previously when he knew her. So I won't tell you how things all blow up, but Amira does come to terms with the situation, and you'll have to read this one to see how she empowers herself to deal with the situation as a Black individual in a way that is fair to her. The author said that she wanted to write this book because she wanted to highlight incidents that happen every day that maybe don't make the news, but to show that transgressions do occur against people of color, particularly Black people, in the everyday. And she wanted to show that not everything makes the news.
Oh, fantastic. Thank you. And it's a book club pick from some
Yeah, it's a Reese Witherspoon club pick. Not why I initially picked it up, but it's good that you know, a book about a social issue like this is gaining a wider audience through a club like that.
Which probably means look for the movie or miniseries adaptation soon. All right, next up we have Virginia.
So the book that I chose explores a different kind of social issue. This is about the impact of technology on society. As technology gets better, gets fancier, gets more sophisticated, what would it be like? What would life be like if it is everything that we do is decided by an algorithm? So the book is called Quality Land. And as you can see, the packaging of this book may remind you of boxes that you get from a giant big online company. This book is by Mark Uwe Kling. It is a German novel, and it's translated in English. And this is not just Quality Land. In this book, it's not just a company like the real one. It is actually an entire country. Quality Land gives you the best life you can get. People that live in Quality Land does not ever have to agonize over what kind of shoes you should buy, or, oh no, I ran out of toilet paper. Never have to worry about that, because the shop, which is what they call the in Quality Land, the shop knows what you need and when you need it. And even before you know that you want it, it will deliver that product right to your house based on the superior algorithm and based on all the information that they know about you. And also the little link they have with your brain that tells them when you're thinking about something, or even just subconsciously kind of like thinking about something, that gives them all the information they need to send you what you want. Don't know where to go for dinner tonight? Well, why don't you check your Quality Pad? It already gave you a list of restaurants based on your previous visits, based on your mood, and also how much you can afford for dinner tonight. And that's what we found Peter Jobless. I should also say that in order to give you the best life experience, Quality Land also rank people from 1 to 100. And based on your rank, it's going to give you the kind of job that you should have. It's going to give you a list of people that you should befriend because they are compatible with you. And it also suggests partners to you that are in your league, basically. So Peter Jobless is dating right now Sandra Amin, and they are having dinner outside, of course, from a restaurant that Quality Pad has suggested. And because Sandra has just got a promotion, so they're out there celebrating. Peter is pretty low rank, and Sandra is a little worried about Peter because, if he gets any lower, he's going to become single digit. And that is no good because Quality Land considers single digits humans useless, basically. And then in the middle of the dinner, Sandra Amin got a notification on her Quality Pad. And it said, "Congratulations, Sandra, on your recent promotion. Here is a list of better boyfriends that you should choose from. And while you're looking through those, would you like me to send Peter a notification saying that you're going to break up with him. And Sandra is like, yes, and feels kind of bad about it. And then Quality Pet noticed that Sandra feels bad. So Quality Pet said, hey, don't worry. If you want to make this a little easier for Peter, why don't you send him this coupon so that the next time he uses our services, he can get 10% off? And Sandra said, yes, please. That makes me feel a lot better about breaking up with Peter. So here's Peter across the table getting a notification on his Quality Pad saying that Sandra has just broken up with him. And not only that, because Sandra is gone now, his rank has gone down now to the single digit. And then immediately he's getting all these unfriend requests from his so-called friends because they don't want Peter to drag him down. And that's the kind of night that Peter has when he went home to his workplace, and he lives sort of in the basement, and he is a metal scrapper. That's the kind of job that was assigned to him. And so his job is basically to take all the obsolete, outdated, devices, robots, droids, and destroy them and recycle them. However, Peter actually couldn't bring himself to do that, so he actually keeps all of them in his basement. So when he got home, his usual gang of robots and droids, all obsolete and all hanging out there in his basement watching Terminator again, apparently. And he also found a box, a delivery from the shop. So he opened that up and he's like, no. There is no way that I will ever need this thing or want this thing. What is this? This is a mistake. They must have sent this to me by mistake. I need to return it. But the shop does not take returns, because if it does take return, it is actually admitting that it is wrong, and the algorithm is never wrong. So Peter is going to have a big fight on his hands to try to return this item, which I'm not going to tell you what it is because it is a surprise. Quality Land, unlike many books that talk about the impact of technology and what future would be like, is not grim, is not dark, not like the kind of books I usually read. This is hilarious. It is super funny, very frightening, very scary about what it's actually talking about, but it is really, really funny. It's been compared to books by Douglas Adams and also like Kurt Vonnegut. And so it is that kind of witty satire, and it is just so much fun to read. I personally really am really interested in recommendation engines. Like, I think they are really, really fascinating and how that works. And I know when we were redesigning when the library was redesigning their website, we've got like public asking us, well, why can't you just use my borrowing history to suggest books to me? Like, why can't you just look at what I borrowed before and then see that, and alert me when there is a new book by an author that I borrowed before. So there are actually definitely interests, from the public about using sort of that personal history to tailor your experience. But think about so I'm really quite interested in that. And I know personally myself, when I've purchased things from that other unnamed company, it also always gives me you might also like, and I have actually discovered some offers based on what they discover, what they recommend. So I've used those things myself. But the kind of imagine the kind of world where everything is sort of tailored to you, and that you are never basically exposed to anything that is different, right? You will never get to hear different points of view. You will never get to hear things from people that might think differently from you, right? It is a pretty scary world when you think about, not to mention all the personal data that they need to make this happen. So I really enjoy this book. If you want a fun and also scary read at the same time, you would want to pick up Quality Land by Mark Yue Kling. And as you can see, it's blurred by Mike Judge, who of course made Office Space and Silicon Valley, and HBO is going to get Mike Judge to actually make a TV series out of this. So I'm looking forward to that, because I think he's just a perfect person to make the humor comes alive. So if you're interested in technology and algorithms, this is a good pick for you, Quality Land.
I think that kind of worked on a couple of us. Fiona in the comments is going to pick that up next after you, Virginia, because she enjoyed it so
good.
much.
It is fun. Yep, it's fun.
I might have put it on.
Fiona, if you want to say your comment first.
I was just gonna say I just put it on hold, so I don't know if I got to it before Fiona Pfeiffer. But
It sounds like Feed by M.T. Anderson.
A lot.
Like a very
funnier.
similar premise.
A lot
yes,
funnier.
fair.
So
yeah,
much
it sounds
fun.
much funnier. But yes, the premise sounds very similar. That idea of you just have to think about something and it has already been sent to you.
The toilet paper one seems very appealing personally, but
Right?
yeah.
Yeah. It also features a robot, an android, who's running for president against a celebrity president in here.
Hmm.
Who would you pick?
I, for one, welcome our new robot overlords. Yeah. All right. And our last one for this session, again, I'm choosing kind of like a kid's book to explain a big concept to start with. And this is a book kind of rooted in intersectional feminism. So intersectionality was coined by Black feminist scholar Kimberly Williams Crenshaw in 1989. And it talks about how people can have multiple identities going at the same time. So it's not just the binary of men or women. You have a lot of different identities going on within you. That could be race, sexuality, class, nationality, citizenship, body. All of that kind of makes you a multi-layered person. So oftentimes when we get a picture or even a kid's book, oftentimes when they're talking about suffrage or women getting the vote, it usually only focuses on the white suffrage movement. And there might be a little footnote somewhere or a little like pop-out box that talks a little bit about how Black women got the vote a lot later. So this book by Yvette Devon really tries to rectify that and bring that struggle, bring that particular identity to the forefront in her new book, Lifting as We Climb, Black Women's Battle for the Ballot Box. This is a book aimed at kind of 10 plus, so kids 10 plus, but as an adult trying to learn more, I found it incredibly useful. It looks at the effort and organization of Black women for suffrage to get the vote, beginning with abolitionists and then kind of going all the way up to the present day and the struggles that are currently being faced by the Black community in terms of voter suppression. What I really liked about this is that there are little bios throughout about really important individuals within the movement. So Sojourner Truth, Ida B. Wells, Fannie Barrier Williams. It talks a lot about how the narrative of suffrage is very white, and that white suffragists, when they were trying to get the vote, often pushed aside or tried to ignore the issue of race when they were trying to move forward with their movement. And so it kind of speaks to the power of Black women to mobilize and to fight and to advocate despite all of the pressures being faced by them. It is illustrated throughout with great pictures of different movements, wonderful information, really succinctly laid out because it's a lot to cover, starting from like the 1890s going all the way forward. And it gets through so much information so well. From 1830 to the present day. It goes through so much information so well. What I really love to see in children's nonfiction books is an extensive bibliography. Just look at that. Oh, those citations. Look at those pages of citations. Oh, there's more of the citations and even more citations. Oh, and there's even more sources. So oftentimes I feel like children's nonfiction doesn't really do justice to the amount of back matter that you need to support your argument. And this one is fantastically done and just leads you down a whole bunch of different routes. So if you're interested in one part of the story or one issue or one time place, you can go back and find more sources for you to travel down. It's such a fantastic, it's a quick read, it's 150 pages, but such an important part of the history and an important part of feminism and an important part of the vote. It is American centric, but again, as Sadie was saying with her book, a lot of the same tactics, a lot of the same experiences are shared over the border. So it's not exclusive to just America. So I would definitely recommend picking this up, lifting as we climb, for kids or for adults who are interested in learning a little bit more.
That sounds very, very interesting. Thank you, Corinne. I think I will pick that one up.
Well, then we've done our job here. So thank you so much for joining us or for watching us later. Remember, you can pick up your Spaceopoly board when you come in to browse or pick up your holds at the Port Moody Public Library, or you can find it on our website and print off your own board, and you even have your own little mini dice. You can join our Facebook page as well for Spaceopoly, and we hope that you enjoyed some of these books, managed to pick them up. If you have any suggestions about these particular categories or ones that you enjoyed, like the first in a series or a book about social issues, let us know in the comments. And I think we're all in the mood to take recommendations, so we will definitely pick them up and let you know what we think. All right, so from everyone here, we hope that you have a wonderful week and happy reading.
Bye.
Bye.